Hello and welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. I'm Adam McNamara, and this is the racing podcast where we strip away the guarded versions of jockeys that you see every day on TV, giving them the platform to tell us what they really think. We talk about their regrets and aspirations, and we have a couple of laughs along the way as well.
In this episode, Harry Burns.
I mean, can you imagine if one of the lads turned up to Royal Ascot in a trackie and with headphones on, they get absolutely ridiculed. I still get people come up to me now and go, that ban should never have happened. I know, trust me. We came home on the Monday and you're taking pictures, returning from home, and I've just got this massive scrape all down my face. When you're not getting opportunities, you end up sort of telling yourself, maybe that's it, maybe it is me, maybe I am no good. They're top athletes and all they want to do is play football, but at the end of the day, they're still getting 100 grand in their bank at the end of the week, whereas if we don't ride, you don't get paid. I think in this game, I'd see it as a serious strength to be laid back. We're the same. You like to tell yourself that's real. I like to tell myself wizards and dragons are real.
Welcome to Jockeys, the podcast, Harry. It's really good to get you on. I've had you in mind for quite a while because obviously we know each other relatively well, and I want to dig into that little brain of yours for a while. Let's start with outside of racing because we can talk about various topics about your racing career, and there's plenty of stuff to talk about. But I want to start outside of racing first. So for the average person who's watching you ride at whatever track you're at any given day, what would they not know about Harry Burns? What are you doing on a day off? What's your hobbies and what's your interests outside of the sport?
Well, aside from being a dad now, I love a game of golf. Absolutely love a game of golf. Go with the boys, get some beers. We just have a bit of crack, really. None of us are really that good. I mean, we're handy enough, like, don't get me wrong, we can get round. But at the minute, I've only been playing sort of once a month. Play football on a Tuesday nights as well. Love my football. Just love all sports, to be honest, mate. Yeah. It's
There's a bit of a contrast there, I think, right? Because golf is one I don't get because I think it's really boring. But there's plenty of like sports people, whether they're footballers or whatever, who tend to play golf as well. Like I always remember Gareth Bale was like a massive. He used to say he preferred golf to football.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand what the draw is for someone who's doing, especially like a high adrenaline sport like being a jockey. I don't understand what the draw is to golf.
Probably just a bit. It's a laid back sport for a start. I mean, don't get me wrong. It can wind you up like mad, you know. Especially if you get to a certain level where you know you're half decent, and then you hit a bad shot. You're like, oh no, I'm better than that. So that can wind you up. But it's just nice, just getting out. You know, like if you don't see the boys that much, and you can get out there. I play a lot with Joseph Parr. Yeah, trains up on Hamilton Road. I don't get to see him too much. Then when we go out on the course, we just have a laugh. We don't really talk about racing that much. It's more of like a bit of a turn off from the game, to be honest. But I'd say for me, it is more of a social, and I'm not too bad at it now either. I used to be bad, but I think when you start connecting, and you start getting all right here, that's when I think you would enjoy it if you start connecting. And again, it's just a shut off, mate. It's I suppose take yourself away from the rat race of racing. That's probably why I play golf, to be honest. Yeah.
Let's get into the Spurs bit then, because it's been. I mean, it's never been a good season for you lads, really, has it? But it's been, I'd say, worse than average.
Yeah, been Spurs fan since as long as I can remember. Where I'm from, it's 20 minutes on the train. I live just above North London, so I've even named my little dog after Sonny, the Spurs player. So it's in the blood, mate. Yeah, absolutely love him.
Yeah. That's like a real test of loyalty, though, isn't it? I mean, you must be fairly loyal. Like your missus must think he's going to be A1 for years and years and years, because if he can follow that for as long as he has, must just be a loyal person.
Yeah. Well, and she actually, like, she'll come in, she'll go, I don't know, I'll be watching it on the TV and she'll go away and do whatever, and she'll come in, and if Spurs are winning, she'll go, "Oh look, Spurs are actually winning," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." But she's from Ireland. Football isn't it's big in Ireland, but it's obviously not one of them. It's not their main sport, so she hasn't actually got any interest in football. But her younger brother Jake, he's an Arsenal fan, which I wasn't too keen on hearing that. But he's a good lad anyway. So.
We've I usually, to be fair, keep this towards the end of the show where we talk about your love life, but you've brought up being a new dad, and we've mentioned your missus digging you out over Spurs, so I feel like it's kind of a natural progression of conversation. So the motive before you had Roosevelt would have been, I don't want to say selfish, but like kind of self-centered, like it's for you, like you're wanting to ride winners for you and for your own career, for your own sake. And then does it flip instantly? Like, can you pinpoint a moment in your life where you're like, this has changed now, this isn't for me anymore?
Oh yeah, I mean, probably the minute she was born. I mean, it's a funny story actually. So Roosevelt was born on a Friday, and I had a ride for Haggas on the Sunday. So I said to Rachel, she was still in hospital. I said to Rachel, "Do you mind if I go and ride it?" And because I won on the filly the week before, and she had her quirks, and she said, "No, you crack on." So I drove to Yarmouth and rode it, and it bolted down to Posamy, and I had to bail off it. And then I fell off and face planted the floor, and we came home on the Monday, and you're taking pictures returning from home, and I've just got this massive scrape all down my face, and so that was that. But yeah, no, to be honest, I mean, being a jockey, it's an individual sport, isn't it? So you're only really looking out for yourself. Obviously, you ride for a trainer and an owner, but it's only you and the horse at the end of the day. So I think you can't help but be selfish to an extent. But now my motives have changed. Always wanted to ride winners, but you feel like you find yourself wanting to go, like, so you say you wouldn't want to go somewhere for one, and you're like, well, you know, if I can get a lift up there or whatever, make it worth it, I'll go up there and ride or whatever, because, you know, I just want the best for Rachel and Roosevelt, to be honest. Yeah.
And tell me about the relationship with Rachel as well, because outside of having Roosevelt and being the mother of your child, obviously she's your partner as well. So has that dynamic changed massively as well? Because before, I'd imagine, like you'll know well, I had relationships before when I was riding, and I wasn't the best boyfriend in the world. A bit of an arsehole, because I was just I was really selfish, and obviously you're doing light and, you know, just generally a moody individual. So were you a bit like that with Rachel before Roosevelt, and did it change after, or did you find that relationship kind of easy to manage and it just kind of naturally transitioned into a good relationship again?
Do you know what? It's interesting because, I mean, me and Rachel have been together. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we've not been together long, really. Like, we've been together just over 3 years. We bought a house and we've got a child, which, you know, I've got friends that have been with partners 7-8 years and they're still not engaged yet. Like, but it's each their own. And I reckon we've only, I can't count on one hand how many times we've argued. Like, if she watches racing, so she knows, if, you know, and I speak to her and she knows if I've had a bad day, she just leave us, won't nag or anything like that, or you know, keep asking questions. She just sort of leaves me to it. But no, mate, I've got a real one, to be honest. We don't ever argue. It's match made in heaven, if you like. So
do you know what I think is funny about it as well is, like, I would never have pictured an Essex lad with an Irish girl. It just seems like a rare combination.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Especially when I hear your accent, and you're proper like Essex, aren't you? I feel like you could be one of the lads off The Only Way Is Essex.
Yeah,
and then
I've actually lost my accent as well. A lot of people
it was stronger, was
Essex.
it?
Oh yeah, proper strong back in the day.
Is that one of them where, like, I think it was Kevin Bridges said it one time, he said it the best, and I get it a bit as well, like with the Irish thing, where, like, you feel like on TV you've got to articulate a lot more and you change your accent and really dial it down so people can understand you, and then you go home and people from where you're from, like, we seen you on the TV talking like an idiot, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. That's what it is, because you've got trainers and owners, and majority of owners quite wealthy people, and they're from solid backgrounds. I think he's well spoken, and he's so you obviously want to come across as well as you can to, because in racing, every interview ever it's an opportunity in a way. So you've got to try your best to just speak properly. But yeah, when some of the lads have said to me, it was like, "Have you heard yourself speak sometimes?" It's just natural. I don't even mean to do it, but you just try, don't you? And
try not to be a geezer.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, I used to be a proper geezer back in the day.
So tell me about like interviews themselves. I think, and I've said this to plenty of jockeys now. I feel like sort of watching from the outside, knowing you guys, because I've ridden with you, or either now like working with the PGA, I know a lot of the jockeys that I wouldn't have known previously. I know them fairly well as well behind the scenes now, and what you see sort of inside the weighing room or behind the scenes can often be very different to what you see on TV. Why do you think that is? Is there a reason? Is racing like really behind the times, and that like you feel you have to be guarded, you can't say too much or you might get jocked off? Or is it a little bit like, is it a bit behind the times, do you think?
I think it is in ways. Yeah, I do. You get footballers going to matches and in tracksuits, headphones on. If that's their way of getting in the zone, fine. I mean, can you imagine if one of the lads turned up to Royal Ascot in a trackie and with headphones on, they get absolutely ridiculed. And it's the same, like saying like you never see a jockey with a beard, clean shaven, like, and it's you just representing yourself in the best way you can, and being clean shaven, for instance, that's I think that's perfectly fine. But in the grand scheme of things, it probably is a bit behind the times, really, in terms of sports, because no lad will want to go out there and say fully act like themselves in front of owners, because you're riding their £1 million horse. So then if you go out there and start messing, like, this guy's a bit of a joker, isn't he? Like, is he taking this seriously? And that might just be his way of coping with the pressure. You don't know, do you? So,
but is there another side to it? Like, because I feel like on reflection, and it's easier when you've retired and you're able to look back and stuff, obviously, and look at it in hindsight. But I feel like when I was going out to owners and trainers, I was almost like putting on an act that I thought they wanted to see, like a professional jockey act, and I was very much not myself. And I think when I look back, and I don't know if this is the case, but I feel like, when someone's not being 100% themselves, you can kind of sense it. You can sense they're not being authentic. And then I think, did that work against me, that I wasn't, maybe I should have been a little bit more myself and put myself out there a bit?
Yeah, no, do you know what? It probably would. I mean, you take, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. I'd say like Ryan Moore's probably, I don't really know Ryan Moore too well, probably than I am, but he's pretty much level across the board. Like, you see him in interviews, he's quite short and sweet. He's quite the same in the weighing room. Whenever I've been in there with him, he's just sort of pretty quiet and just rides and cracks on home. But there is some other lads there where they are different to when they go out there, and you do think to yourself, like you're saying earlier, you think, it's not really you, that. But I suppose it's probably fear of losing a contact. That's probably why it is, I'd say, because we all know how ruthless this game is. So you lose one contact, might be his only contact, so then he's might not ride for 2 weeks. So I wouldn't really know why, but it's probably, I don't know why.
Talking about the game being ruthless, then I think it'd be fair to say, you can correct me again if I'm wrong. I think it'd be fair to say you've had an up and down career, and there's been some difficulties along the way. I want to touch on that with you, because I find it fascinating, your journey and your trajectory through your career. I find it really, really interesting, because I'd argue you were quite a good claimer, an above average claimer, particularly when you were in sort of your £5. I thought you were really valuable, but you didn't seem to get as much recognition as you would have deserved. And then when I first really got to know you was at Roger Charlton's, when we were both apprentice there. And I think, were you a 7 or 5 at that stage?
7, yeah, I was a 7
7.
for a long time, yeah.
And I felt like, again, like watching you ride at home and the way you conducted yourself and everything else, I felt like you didn't get the recognition you deserved, and you didn't get the rides you deserved, and then you had other issues on top of it. But did it feel like that to you? Did it feel like at that early stage of your career, like you were knocking about for a good while and not really getting what you felt was not was owed to you, but what you felt you probably deserved?
Yeah, no, I do. Like, I always felt like I've always had people say, you're more than capable of you're a good rider, and this, that, and the other. And like, if a horse is fancied, and if I think he could win, 9 times out of 10 I can get the job done. I don't really come under pressure. It's just, for me, I try and ride every horse to instruction, and this, that, and the other. But it has been up and down. I've stepped away from the game because you end up telling yourself, when you're not getting opportunities, you end up sort of telling yourself, maybe that's it. Maybe it is me. Maybe I am no good. But then I had a few years out of the game. I got a bit ill, and then I went out of the game. I think I had about. Do you know what? Actually, I went home for about 6 months and just stayed at home like a cabbage. When I left Roger Charlton's, actually, I used to walk the dog for about 6 months. It's the fittest dog ever. And then I sort of come back into racing, and then you get people going up to it. Why don't you get your license out? And it's like, you really want to hear it. But I went to Hong Kong, actually, and worked out there. Absolutely love that. And then I came back, was riding out for Joseph Parr, and he was, Joe was just sort of wording it in, get your license out, let's have a bit of crack, ride a few winners, because we're mates, me and Joe, so it was like, be good, like, I'll train him, you ride him, it's like sort of all very friendly. And I was riding out for Chris Dwyer as well at the time. And then Chris said it as well, I'll throw you up if you get your license back out. And I actually sort of hit the ground running. But again, I went real good, rode 30 winners in the season, and then I hit another flat spot. But now I'm just keep grinding through it, and I'm at a good base now as well. So hopefully I can just sort of try and get a consistent level and try and keep at that sort of consistent level.
I remember coming towards the back end of your time there. I remember looking at you a couple of days thinking, he doesn't look well. You'd lost like a lot of weight. I think you'd gone beyond what your minimum riding weight was. And you looked like pale and gaunt. You looked really unhealthy. And I didn't know up until that point that you had Crohn's disease. And that was obviously what was causing the illness and making you feel really unwell. So how difficult was that, on top of a difficult enough job, not kind of getting the rides or recognition that you maybe felt like you deserved, on top of having a big flare up with Crohn's and having to deal with that and taking a step away? How did that feel? What was your mindset and your mentality in that time?
I just wanted to go home. That's all it was. And I'm not homesick. I left home at 16, and I've never looked back. I don't get homesick, but it was probably a combination of not getting rides. I probably told myself, that's it. You saw the dream's over. And the job is a full-time job. And then the stress levels, I don't cope well with stress. Well, say my Crohn's doesn't. If I get too stressed, I sort of relapse and then start going downhill. But I've always been bad for just sort of leaving it and being, it'll be all right, get better, and it weren't really. So, I remember when I left Charlton's, I weren't in too good a space. But I went home and I spoke to the consultants at Adam Brooks and whatnot, and they helped me. but that's all. I just remember saying I used to live with Alex Korean, and Alex isn't in the game anymore either. He's studying to be a paramedic. So I remember us both sort of sitting there being like, we want to get out of the game. Like, we don't want to be in this anymore. But deep down, well, I'm still in the game, so it's probably said it all. Deep down, I probably didn't really want to. Probably just sick, and I was sick. It's probably what it was. And it's like when you said you sort of half snapped at Roger. It's like your temper boils down. You don't want to do anything, and it's just. And that was that really. And I went home for 6 months and sort of gathered myself up, got better, and then ended up coming to Newmarket. Yeah.
And you had a stint in Hong Kong as well in the interim, which was, I imagine, was a good experience, because it would have, like, you were still in horse racing as such, weren't you? But it was like a different kind of culture, a different vibe. And did that kind of help reignite a bit of passion for it as well?
Yeah, it's a different world out there. Like, I mean, for a start, like, the pay's unbelievable. The hours are minimal. But the jockey club own the betting ring out there, so they can just pile money into it. They can afford to do all this, pay the top wages and have X amount of people working there. So there's like an unlimited number of people that can be there. Like, I used to start at 4:30 in the morning and be finished at 7:30, and that was me done for the day. You'd be like, what am I going to do today? But I'm a townie anyway, so I love being in the city.
So what did you do then? If you're finished at 7:30, what do you do for the day?
I messed up a bit actually, because Hong Kong is surprisingly not a very big place. So I went and done all the good things, like the hikes up Lions Rock, a bit of sightseeing, all this, in the first month of being there. And then it comes to that, and I was like, we get a bit bored, like. So I got into a little routine. I got home and I'd have a little kip. I started taking golf up again out there, which is bloody expensive, because there's only 4 courses in Hong Kong. I think 2 of them are members only. So the only course we could really play on was a course called Fan Ling, which is, they host the Hong Kong Open, so it's a real smart course. I think it used to be something like 100. It worked out about £150 a round. I used to play there twice a week, and that's probably where I was the best at golf. But it was, I to be honest, I loved it, and I'd still be out there now, to be honest. But I only came back because of COVID. So COVID broke out, and it was at that stage when no one knew what it was. Hong Kong isn't very far away from where, say, COVID broke out, so there was panic and this, that, and so I thought, of my obviously health history, I thought, I don't want to be stuck here. So I caught a plane back in February, it was. But yeah, do you know what? I probably would have still been out there now to this day, because it was really good. Yeah, I'd fully recommend going out there and working, because it's a good lifestyle.
And let's talk about then. You've obviously come back to the UK then, and you've started presumably riding out again for, like, Joseph Parr and different people. They've given you the nod to say, yeah, we think you should get your license out. And at that point, like you said, you're maybe not taking it entirely seriously. You're just, I suppose, seeing how it goes. But then when your sort of first season back, I remember seeing your name back in a race car, and like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I'll keep tabs on this. And you were banging in quite a few winners that first season back. So that must have felt a bit like surreal to have gone from the mindset you were in and the difficulties you were having that time out to come back into it to sort of get rolling and kick on nearly straight away. That must have been a bit strange.
Yeah, I went into it with a different mentality, to be honest. Obviously, the first season I was riding for Joe, and again, Joe's a good mate, so it was more like you're riding for your mates. It was like, it was obviously, it's not casual, because you're paying, somebody's paying you to ride their horse, and it's obviously, it's it could be their whole life. So but I sort of had that casual mindset of like, just relax and don't get too stressed or worry about the driving. If you don't ride for a week, you don't ride for a week. So what? Whereas I used to be itching, like, why haven't I ridden for 2 weeks? And you're like, you're looking, you're ridden a horse and somebody else is on it, and you start going, it would annoy you. So even now, I've sort of got that mentality of, if I don't ride something, or don't ride it, is what it is. But that's what it was, to be honest, mate. I changed my mentality, and luckily it sort of worked out for the best. And I got on a few winners and got my name back out there. And the rest is history, to be honest. I think, I ended up riding a winner for Simon Crisford, and I thought because Joey only had, I think, about 25 horses at the time, and I said to Joe, I says, I might have to go to Simon and Ed Crisford's, because, you know, they've got a lot of ammunition. Might be the odd chance I can get on a good one. And Joe gave me his blessing. He said, yeah, you know, you do you know. And then it's sort of, I rode, I think I rode them, I think it was something like 24 winners my first season there. So we sort of really hit it off, and that was really good time. But then, you know, they've got a lot of big owners that like the best. So I'd maybe win 1 or 2 on one when they weren't there, and anyone would expect, well, like, I've won 2 on this, so I should ride this again, really. And then no, you know, James Doyle Buick, them lads come along and they're on it. You've just got to literally, that's fine, go into work the next day and crack on.
But tell me, like, because this is something I think it's really interesting for, again, the average viewer or outside person to look into it, because it's a big topic, the whole jocking off thing. And especially if you've won on a horse and you get jocked off, and it happens, and it annoys me a bit when I hear people saying, "Oh, it's happened for years. It's going to keep. He's not the first to be jocked off. Won't be the last." Yada yada yada. I do find the concept really fascinating, because it is the owner's right to have whoever they want, and the trainer's right to have whoever they want, but it doesn't make sense, and I don't think you'd see it happen as often in other sports, where, for example, striker goes on, starts up front for Spurs, scores for 2 games in a row, and then gets benched. If they're in form and they've had a rapport and everything's going well, they generally tend to stay in the first team. To get jocked off, especially something you won, it's like, it's a bit mental, and I think a lot of jockeys give the political answer of, like, you know, it's happened, what can you do, that's the game, especially when they get interviewed. And we've had examples, like, say, Callum Shepherd last year, Ambiente Friendly, and he just kind of shrugged it off, and he was really professional about it, and, like, got to give him a lot of credit. If that was me, and when that was me, again, like, to the public, I'd have been, yeah, you know, it is what it is. Behind the scenes, I was absolutely fucking seething.
Yeah,
it used to drive me insane. Like, it's like I said, especially if you've won on one, drove me around the bend, and it's something I still to this day can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, no, I mean, do you know what it is? It's like, it's probably like, you think to yourself, you've got such a good partnership with someone, and then it's like almost you've been betrayed nearly, and it's like, but then again, it goes back to the fear of losing contact. You know, say Callum Shepherd rides a lot for the Gredleys. If he was to go, oh, I'm absolutely fuming, blah blah blah, this isn't acceptable, and I've done nothing wrong on this horse. You know, the Gredley family might look at that and go, well, you know, we own the horse, so it is all right. And then because he's threw his toys out of the pram, he ain't riding for us again. He's probably lost 100 rides a year for that. So this is why the game's ruthless, really. And you have got to take it on the chin, really, to be honest. It's because at the end of the day, you know, you say with the footballers, but if a footballer gets benched, he still gets paid. So, you know, it's sort of, obviously it'll be fuming, because, you know, they're top athletes and all they want to do is play football. But at the end of the day, they're still getting 100 grand in their bank at the end of the week. Whereas if we don't ride, you don't get paid. So that probably be that for me is probably why they just take it on the chin. At the end of the day, it is your living. The money's not as good as being a footballer, where, you know, footballer, they can get knocked down from 100 grand a week to 20 grand a week, and they're still more than comfortable. Whereas if a jockey gets knocked down from 100 rides after 6 months to 50 rides after 6 months, he's struggling, really struggling to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And so I'd say that's probably a lot of it. Yeah.
There was one more sort of blip that came along in your career after it had been, like I said, it'd been really difficult already. You'd made your return, things going really well, and then you got hit with a ban, a lengthy enough ban that was fairly well publicized as well, which made it, I'd imagine, made your career a lot more difficult. And I think it's important to give context for people who are listening, because you got a ban for what's classed as a notifiable medication.
Yeah.
So effectively, like we discussed, you had Crohn's disease, you took a prescription for that and came up with the notifiable medications list. You didn't notify the BHA that you were taking it, which is technically what you're meant to do. Came up in a drugs test, and then you received, I think it was 3-month ban.
It was 2 months. Yeah.
2 months. So I think, and you said this publicly yourself afterwards, that it was your own fault. You should have notified them, but the penalty was still incredibly harsh. And I remember, because at that point I joined the PGA, and I remember you rang me about it after it had happened. I remember scanning through the rules to see if we could find anything and digging into the detail and thinking, there's nothing we can do by the rule book. But in my opinion, that means the rule book is wrong. And I don't think that's what the rule was designed to do, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a reason these rules are in place, but it still felt incredibly harsh. So for you at that point, like I said, when you were feeling like you were getting motoring again, to have that kind of jam put on again, technically it was your fault, but really through no fault of your own in terms of your riding or your career, your ability. How mentally difficult was that? And did it really set you back, or did you find that because of your past experiences, you were able to kind of power through it?
Yeah, I'd say definitely the attitude I took to it was, I was trying to tell myself, it's fine, I'll just take off where I left off. And what was it when? Yeah, so I literally, as soon as the band come through, I said to Rachel, let's go on holiday. We went to Sardinia for a week because I thought, could you sit at home and you'd end up, you'd end up going mad. So we went to Sardinia straight away, and I was trying to keep as cool as I could. I still get people come up to me now and go, that ban should never have happened. I know, trust me, because to be honest, after that ban, ever since that ban, I've struggled to get. I've got nowhere near the numbers in terms of rides and winners from where just before the ban. So I have struggled to get back rolling. But again, I've got other things to worry about as well now. So it takes your mind off things. But yeah, no, I'm at a good base now in William Haggas at Somerville. So hopefully I can try and get somewhere up near them numbers, try and get my claim gone. But yeah, to be honest, mate, I kept myself busy. I kept riding out. I went on holidays, played a lot of golf, and just forgot about it, really. Rachel's always having a go at me for being too laid back anyway, but I think in this game, I'd see it as a serious strength to be laid back. Yeah.
Let's come to Lord of the Rings then, because this is like, we're getting on a dangerous territory of being really nerdy here. And this isn't going to do our street cred any good, especially you being from Essex. Like, these Essex lads are going to laugh at you. But Lord of the Rings for both of us is a bit of an obsession.
Yeah.
And like, I'll rewatch that trilogy, I'd say probably 10 to 12 times a year. There's like nearly at least once a month I'm going through all three of the movies.
Yeah.
Can you tell me why you love it so much? Because I've got and I can tell you why I love it in a minute. But I want to know what it is about Lord of the Rings that, like, for a lad of our generation, let's say, what really draws you in about it and makes you think, oh, this is brilliant?
Rachel, my fiance, has never watched it and has point blank told me she will never watch it. That and Harry Potter, she can't get her head around fantasy. And breaks my heart, to be honest, mate. Absolutely breaks my heart.
That's grounds for dismissal, lad. I don't think that's.
Yeah, I know. But
Well, you must have been too far along the line before she admitted that, were you?
Yeah, and I mean,
That on a first date, like.
Do you know what the worst thing is? I'm sure we watched a couple of movies, say like, I don't know, like superhero movies and stuff, and early doors, she was like, "Yeah, it was good, Dan. I'm thinking you lied to me, you did." And the worst thing is, I took her to watch a Marvel film once, which is probably one of the worst films ever.
Loved it.
And you know what she did when we got out of the cinema? She went, "I really enjoyed that. It was a good film." That I was like, "Nah." And then she'll go and watch a drama love story where Steve and Susie like connect after 20 years from halfway across the world. Chances are it's never going to happen. I said, that's more fantasy than Harry Potter.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I said, so you like fantasy as well, really?
Yeah.
I said, I'm just like, we're the same. You like to tell yourself that's real. I like to tell myself wizards and dragons are real.
Before we make it any worse for ourselves, I think we should end it there because, like I say, we're going to get ripped to bits. I think we've got a bit carried away, but it's been really good catching up with you and chatting to you again. And I think, for the record, I think that trajectory that you're on, and the difficulties that you've had, I think is really, really admirable. Obviously, and I've seen it firsthand. So I think you deserve a lot of credit for getting back on the horse again and giving it a go. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed for you, obviously, that looking into the next couple of months this season, that your numbers will start kind of bumping up to where they should be, and you get back on that winning streak. And obviously, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on it. So, absolute pleasure having you on. Really appreciate it, and wish you all the best.
No, thanks for having me, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you, mate.
Cheers.
It's good to get on. Thanks, mate.